Have you ever wondered, if Buddhism says the self is an illusion, why then do we feel so real? Why do we wake up every morning with a clear sense of I, a history, a story, and emotions that bind us together? If it is only a mirage, why does the illusion feel so powerful? These are not abstract questions. They strike at the very heart of our human existence. And the Buddha, over 2,500 years ago, faced this question with profound clarity. What he discovered continues to shape the way millions live, think, and find peace today. To understand this mystery, we must first return to the beginning, ancient India, in the 5th or 6th century BCE. In that era, kingdoms flourished along the Ganges River. Palaces rose high, philosophies clashed, rituals consumed society, and seekers left their homes in search of ultimate truth. Amidst this vibrant but restless world, a prince named Siddhartha Gautama was born into luxury. He was shielded from suffering, living behind palace walls where music and beauty drowned out the cries of the world. But fate was waiting. When he finally ventured outside, he saw the inescapable truths of aging, sickness, and death. These sights shattered the palace illusion, awakening in him a burning question. Is there a way beyond suffering? Is there something eternal, something free from decay? That question led Siddhartha to renounce his royal life. For years he wandered, studied with the wisest teachers, and practiced severe austerities, starving his body nearly to death. Yet wisdom did not come through torture. Finally, sitting beneath a Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, he turned inward with unwavering resolve. On that full moon night, he pierced through the veil of ignorance and awakened to the Dharma. He saw the truth that suffering arises not from life itself, but from clinging, from the desperate belief in a permanent self that can possess and control reality. This was the birth of the Buddha, the awakened one. From that moment, the Buddha's life became a gift to humanity. He walked from village to village, barefoot, teaching farmers, kings, courtesans, and monks alike. He never demanded worship, but offered a pathway of practice, a way of living known as the middle way. He spoke of the Four Noble Truths: that suffering exists, that it has causes, that it can end, and that the Eightfold Path leads to liberation. In his compassion, he founded a community, the Sangha, so the teachings could live on. But here is the heart of his insight. What we call self is not a solid, eternal entity. It is a collection, a flow of ever-changing experiences: body, feelings, thoughts, consciousness. Just as a river appears continuous, yet is never the same water, the self appears real, but is constantly shifting. This is the teaching of unattained self. Yet the Buddha did not deny the reality of our experience. He saw that the illusion of self is sticky, persuasive, and deeply felt. The point was not to reject experience, but to understand its nature. When we cling to the idea of I and mine, suffering follows. When we release this grasping, freedom and compassion arise. Centuries after his passing, the Buddha's teachings spread far beyond India across Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, Tibet, China, Korea, and Japan. In each land, the Dharma took new forms. In Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia, Theravada Buddhism preserved the earliest teachings, focusing on meditation and monastic life. In Tibet, Vajrayana Buddhism wove rich rituals, chants, and visualizations into the path of enlightenment. In China and Japan, Mabina Buddhism blossomed with Zen simplicity, Pure Land devotion, and an emphasis on compassion for all beings. These traditions shaped empires, inspired art, architecture, and literature, and offered countless seekers a way to face the mystery of existence. But let us pause here and step into the present. What does Buddhism look like in our time? Across the world, Buddhists still chant before dawn, light incense before statues of the Buddha, and bow 3 times in gratitude. In monasteries, monks shave their heads, wear robes, and dedicate their days to meditation and study. Families gather in temples on holy days, offering food to the Sangha and releasing lanterns into the night sky as symbols of impermanence. In Tibet, prayer flags flutter in the wind, carrying blessings across the mountains. In Japan, Zen monks sweep temple grounds in silence, every movement itself a meditation. And yet, Buddhism has also entered modern life in new ways. Mindfulness meditation, once practiced in forests and caves, is now taught in hospitals, schools, and workplaces. People who have never called themselves Buddhists sit in silence, watching their breath, learning to let go of stress. Neuroscientists study meditation's effect on the brain. Therapists use compassion practices to heal emotional wounds. Ordinary people, in moments of anxiety and fear, repeat a simple Buddhist truth: "This, too, shall pass." The ancient wisdom breathes into the modern world, offering calm amidst chaos. At its core, Buddhism is not about worshiping an external figure, but awakening within. Its principles are universal. Compassion, karu, is the willingness to feel another's suffering as one's own and to respond with kindness. Loving kindness, midib, is the radiant wish that all beings, even enemies, be happy and free. Wisdom, prajna, is seeing things as they truly are, impermanent, interconnected, without a fixed self. Together, These principles shape a spiritual path not confined to temples, but alive in every act of generosity, every moment of awareness, every breath of forgiveness. And so we return to the mystery. If the self is an illusion, why does it feel so real? The Buddhist answer is gentle yet transformative. The self feels real because it is a pattern, a story constantly recreated, moment by moment. It is like a flame that appears steady, though it is ever changing. Buddhism does not ask us to deny the flame, it asks us to see its nature. In seeing, clinging loosens. In loosening, suffering softens. And in that softness, a vast compassion opens, because we realize we are not separate. Today, in a world filled with division, anxiety, and endless craving, this truth is more urgent than ever. If we cling to me and mine, we build walls. If we awaken to non-self, those walls crumble, and what remains is love. The Buddha's insight was not abstract philosophy, was medicine for the human heart. So, when you look in the mirror tomorrow and feel the weight of I, pause and remember, this I is not a prison, it is a dance. It is a flow of countless causes and conditions, your ancestors, the earth, the stars. To see this is not to lose yourself, but to find yourself everywhere. In the smile of a stranger, in the rustle of the wind, in the beating of your heart that was never truly separate from the whole. The Buddha's journey began with a prince, troubled by the reality of suffering. It ended with a teaching that continues to shine across centuries, that liberation is possible, that compassion is boundless, and that the illusion of self, once seen clearly, becomes the gateway to peace. And maybe, just maybe, in seeing through the illusion, we discover something far more real than the self could ever be: an awakened heart, vast, luminous, and free. When we speak of Buddhism, it is easy to think only of serene monks sitting in meditation, or perhaps of temples filled with incense and statues of the Buddha. But Buddhism is more than an image. It's a story that began with one man's journey and spread across continents, transforming entire cultures and generations. To truly understand why the self feels so real, even though Buddhism teaches it is an illusion, we must look at the history that carried this wisdom through time. After his enlightenment beneath the Bodhi tree, the Buddha did not keep his discovery hidden. He could have remained in the bliss of liberation, detached from the world's noise. But compassion pulled him back into the human struggle. He chose to teach, knowing that not everyone would understand, yet believing that some would. His first sermon, delivered at Deer Park in Sarnath, laid the foundation, the Four Noble Truths. Suffering is real. It has a cause, our clinging and craving. It has an end. And there is a path, the Eightfold Path, that leads us there. From that moment, the Sangha, the community of monks and nuns, was born. Ordinary men and women joined him, leaving behind wealth, power, and worldly pursuits to live simply, to meditate, and to share the Dharma. But the Buddha did not limit his teaching to renunciants. He spoke to farmers in their fields, to kings in their palaces, to mothers holding infants, to warriors heading into battle. He spoke in the language of compassion, tailoring his message to whoever stood before him. For the poor, he taught generosity. For the restless, he taught meditation. For the powerful, he taught humility. For the grieving, he taught impermanence and hope. Over the centuries, after the Buddha's passing into parinirvana, his disciples carried the teachings far and wide. Emperor Ashoka of India became a turning point. Once a ruthless conqueror, he was transformed by the Dharma into a king of compassion. Under his reign, Buddhist principles of non-violence and care for all beings spread across his vast empire. He sent emissaries to Sri Lanka, where Buddhism took root and flourished. From there, the Dharma traveled across seas and mountains, adapting like water to every land it touched. In Southeast Asia, Buddhism blossomed into Theravada, preserving the early teachings in the Pali Canon and centering life around monastic discipline. In the snowy peaks of Tibet, it merged with ancient traditions, creating Vajrayana, filled with powerful rituals, mandalas, and mantras meant to guide the mind swiftly toward enlightenment. In China, Buddhism blended with Taoist and Confucian wisdom, giving rise to schools that emphasized meditation, compassion, and philosophical depth. And in Japan, Zen emerged, spare, direct, pointing to awakening not through words, but through silence and presence. Each branch carried the heart of the Buddha's message but expressed it in a new cultural voice. Imagine monks chanting in Pali under tropical palms, Tibetan lamas blowing conch shells as prayer flags ripple in the wind, Chinese masters teaching through poetry, Japanese monks practicing mindfulness in the simplicity of sweeping a garden. Though the forms differ, the essence is one. Life is impermanent, the self is a mirage, and freedom is possible here and now, and all through these centuries. People kept asking the same question. If the self is an illusion, why does it feel so real? Every tradition answered not with abstract theories, but with practices, meditation, mindfulness, compassion that helped people experience directly the shifting, dreamlike nature of identity. The Buddha's insight was not something to be memorized, but to be lived, breathed, tested in the fires of ordinary life. This journey through history shows us something profound, that the illusion of self is not easily dissolved, but with patience, wisdom, and compassion, entire civilizations have been shaped by the attempt to see clearly. From emperors who renounced violence, to poets who wrote of emptiness, to humble villagers who lit lamps before shrines. The story of Buddhism is the story of humanity striving to wake up from its dream of separateness. If we fast forward from the great empires and the spread of Buddhism across Asia, we arrive at today a world far removed from ancient India. Skyscrapers, smartphones, fast cars, and the hum of global life might seem like the opposite of monks meditating in forests. Yet, the teachings of the Buddha are still alive, practiced daily by millions, in both traditional and modern forms. Picture the break of dawn in a small Thai village. The streets are quiet, the air still cool. A line of saffron-robed monks walks silently, each holding an alms bowl. Villagers kneel, offering rice, fruit, and simple food with bowed heads. There are no words exchanged, only the silent exchange of generosity and gratitude. This act, so small yet so profound, binds the community together. It is not just feeding monks. It is feeding the Dharma, feeding compassion, and loosening the grip of greed in Tibet. High in the mountains, prayer flags flutter in the wind. Each color, each mantra printed on cloth is carried by the breeze to bless all beings near and far. Inside monasteries, monks chant in deep, resonant tones, their voices merging like rivers into an ocean of prayer. The air vibrates with centuries of devotion. In Japan, Zen monks sweep temple grounds with mindful precision. Every stroke of the broom a meditation. Every gesture a reminder that enlightenment is not somewhere far away, but hidden in the ordinary. Across Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Cambodia, families still gather on full moon nights to light oil lamps around temples. Children run barefoot with flowers in their hands, elders chant verses, and monks tell stories of the Buddha beneath the glow of lanterns. These rituals, repeated for generations, remind people of impermanence and gratitude. The flicker of each flame is a mirror of life itself, bright, fragile, beautiful, and fleeting. And beyond the traditional practices, Buddhism has found new homes in the modern world. In cities like New York, London, and Sydney, you can find meditation centers tucked between busy streets. Corporate workers, school teachers, doctors, and students sit quietly on cushions, breathing, watching their thoughts, learning to let go. Some never call themselves Buddhists, yet they embrace mindfulness as medicine for stress and anxiety. Hospitals use meditation to help patients heal. Schools teach children compassion exercises, guiding them to close their eyes and wish happiness for themselves, their friends, even for those they dislike. What unites all these practices, old and new, is the same timeless truth: the self we cling to so tightly is not as solid as it appears. And by loosening that grip, even in small ways, we find peace. The villager giving rice, the monk chanting, the businesswoman meditating at lunch, all are walking the same path. Different forms, same essence. Each act is a reminder that life is interconnected, that we are part of a vast web where compassion is not just an idea, but a living force in daily Buddhist practice. Rituals are not empty gestures. Bowing is humility. Chanting is mindfulness. Meditation is freedom. Even offering a single flower is an act of surrendering ego, a recognition that nothing belongs to us forever. Through these simple acts, people slowly chip away at the illusion of I and mine, replacing it with we and us. And so, in both the quiet of monasteries and the rush of modern cities, Buddhism continues to answer the question: if the self is an illusion, why does it feel so real? Because our rituals, our thoughts, our habits keep painting the illusion, stroke after stroke. But through practice, through mindfulness, compassion, and awareness, we begin to see the canvas beneath the paint, the silence beneath the noise, the reality beneath the illusion. At the heart of Buddhism lie principles that are as simple as they are profound: compassion, loving kindness, and wisdom. These are not just lofty ideals. They are practical tools for living, ways to navigate the illusion of self and the reality of life's suffering. When we understand these principles deeply, the question why the self feels so real begins to shift. We see that the self is real only as a story, a habit, a pattern of thoughts and desires. And in understanding this, we discover something far larger. The self is not separate from the world. It is a thread woven into the vast tapestry of existence. Compassion, or karu, is the first thread. It is the willingness to feel the suffering of others as our own, to respond not with indifference, but with caring action. Imagine a mother seeing her child stumble without hesitation. She moves to comfort. Compassion in Buddhism extends that instinct to all beings, because when we grasp the truth of non-self, we understand that no one exists in isolation. The more we open our hearts to the struggles of others, the more we loosen the illusion of an isolated I. Compassion is both medicine and mirror. It heals us even as it connects us. Loving kindness, or metta, is another powerful thread. It is the gentle, radiant wish that all beings be happy and free. Unlike fleeting emotions or sentimental feelings, loving kindness is deliberate, practiced, and cultivated. Sitting quietly, we can close our eyes and silently extend goodwill. First to ourselves, then to loved ones, then to strangers, and even to those we struggle to accept. In this practice, the self begins to soften, walls dissolve, anger melts, fear loses its grip. The illusion of separation is replaced by a luminous awareness that we are all part of the same unfolding life. Wisdom, or prajna, is the third thread. This is the insight into the true nature of reality, impermanence, non-self, and interconnectedness. Wisdom is not intellectual knowledge alone, it's direct seeing, moment by moment. It is noticing that thoughts arise and fade, that feelings come and go, that even our identities shift like clouds in the sky. When we look deeply, we see that clinging is what causes suffering, and letting go is what brings freedom. Wisdom gives context to our experiences, revealing that while the self may appear solid, it is fluid, temporary, and ultimately interconnected with everything around us. Together, these three principles, compassion, loving kindness, and wisdom, create a path that transforms the heart. They are the tools that allow us to step out of the prison of the ego and into the vast openness of being. Through them, the illusion of self is not destroyed violently. It is gently revealed as a pattern, a story we can observe without becoming enslaved by it. And in that revelation comes freedom. The beauty of these principles is that they are not confined to monasteries or remote temples. They are alive in the world around us. In a crowded subway, someone offers a seat to a stranger. A child comforts a crying friend. A doctor sits patiently with a patient, listening with full attention. Each act of compassion, each moment of loving kindness, each insight into impermanence is a living meditation, a small step toward awakening. And when we practice them consistently, we discover a quiet revolution within. Fear loses its sharpness, anger softens. The endless chase of desire becomes less urgent. In daily life, we begin to notice that the self-thigh we cling to's more like a role we play than an unchanging reality. And paradoxically, this awareness does not make life hollow. It makes life brighter, more expansive, more alive. Through these practices, we see the profound truth of Buddhism, that the self feels real because it is experienced through habits, thoughts, and attachments. Yet the self is not our master. We are not trapped. By cultivating compassion, loving kindness, and wisdom. We awaken to a deeper reality, one in which life is no longer about defending a fragile ego, but about participating in the endless, beautiful flow of being. So, we arrive at the question once more: if the self is an illusion, why does it feel so real? And now, perhaps, the answer becomes clearer. The self feels real because it is experienced moment by moment, thought by thought, emotion by emotion. It is the lens through which we see the world, the story we tell ourselves, the habit we mistake for permanence. Yet, Buddhism does not demand that we shatter this lens. Instead, it invites us to observe it, to see its patterns, to recognize that beneath it all, life itself is far greater than any single identity. In seeing this, a transformation occurs. We begin to understand that the I is not a solitary fortress, but a river that flows through mountains, valleys, and forests of experience. And as we loosen our grip on that riverbank of ego, we find something astonishing. Connection. Connection to others, connection to the earth, connection to the unfolding universe. The illusion of separation dissolves, and in its place blooms compassion, loving kindness, and peace. The self no longer feels like a cage, but like a part of something infinite, luminous, and boundless. This is the ultimate gift of Buddhism. It does not give you a new identity. It frees you from the tyranny of a false one. It does not promise a life without challenges, but it teaches you how to walk through every storm with clarity and grace. It does not insist that the world conforms to your desires, but it shows that freedom arises not from controlling life, but from understanding it deeply, moment by moment. Think of the simplest acts in your day: a smile shared with a stranger, a word of encouragement to a friend, a pause to breathe and watch the sun rise. Each is a practice of awakening. Each is a reminder that the self, while deeply felt, is not ultimate. And in this recognition, the heart expands, fear softens, resentment melts. Gratitude arises naturally, like sunlight spilling over a mountain ridge. The Buddha's journey from a sheltered prince to the awakened one was not a journey away from life, but into it. Every step he took, every teaching he offered, was a guide for us to navigate the illusion of self and discover our deepest truth. Today, we can follow in those footsteps, not by abandoning our world, but by being fully present within it. By practicing compassion, cultivating loving kindness, and embracing wisdom, we can live as awakened beings, even amidst the noise and chaos of modern life. So, the next time you feel the weight of I, pause, breathe, observe. Remember that this sense of self though vivid and persuasive, is only a part of the vast tapestry of life. And when you open your heart to that truth, something miraculous happens. The illusion dissolves, and reality, the living, breathing, connected, compassionate reality, shines through. You are not just a self, you are life itself, moment by moment, radiant, impermanent, and infinitely free. In the end, Buddhism does not simply answer a question. It offers a living experience that the self, though seemingly real, is a doorway. And through that doorway, we discover a life more beautiful, more spacious, and more real than we ever imagined. The self may be an illusion, but the love, awareness, and freedom that awaken when we see through it are as real as the sun rising each morning, as real as the breath filling your lungs right now. And in that truth, we find peace.